Imagine if you were socially isolated from your community based purely on the way that you looked. This is a reality for millions of kids worldwide who suffer from cleft palate and craniofacial conditions. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Associate Professor Richard Lewandowski and Dr. Julio Santos from Operation Smile Australia and Operation Smiles Philippines. Stryker globally and locally has been partnering with Operation Smile for over 30 years to help transform the lives of these kids. The Surgical Outreach Committee, as one of the corporate social responsibility groups, plans to engage the Stryker team with such great programs. Let's jump straight into the conversation.
Thanks. My name's Richard Lewandowski. I'm a plastic and reconstructive surgeon specialising in craniofacial surgery and the co-founder and current chair of the board of Operation Smile Australia. And I guess I'm here because of the relationship that Operation Smile Australia and Stryker Australia have formed over the last few years and to talk more about that.
I'm Julio Santos, or Gio for short. I'm a plastic reconstructive surgeon from Manila, and I've been working with Operation Smile Australia and Richard over here for the past 2 years in holding their craniofacial missions in our institution, East Avenue Medical Center.
Well, I guess if you look back, I started with Operation Smile some 31 years ago. And over those years, there was obviously a need for Australia to be part of that. And that's why we set up Operation Smile Australia. My wife Sue and I did that. In those years, it was an evolution. We were looking at how we could continue to support cleft lip and palate missions. But we were also tasked with trying to do some of the more complex surgeries, which included encephalocele. And the vast majority of those came from the Philippines. And we started doing that by bringing them to Australia, and it became quite clear early on that that was a very expensive way to do that. And we also weren't building a legacy. So as part of those numbers, I guess, our mantra was to try and set up the centres closer to home for these patients in places like Manila in the Philippines. And we've been going back to Manila for basically 25 years. We've got a new centre in East Avenue Medical Center. And the idea there is not to just treat the children at the time, but to train all of the professionals in that hospital and all of the volunteers from Operation Smile Philippines. And build legacy, build capacity going forward. So the numbers, if you put it into context, is not just about what we've done, but how we can actually have a more broader approach to building capacity and empowering the countries themselves to do the work.
Talking about transforming lives, and you've seen these surgeries impact firsthand. So you're able to share the story of a patient whose life has been changed by an Operation Smile mission?
We actually had a patient 2 years ago. His name was Joseph. He had an encephalocele right in between his eyes. So he got teased. He didn't want to go to school. He got bullied, didn't make any friends, just because of his physical appearance. So we operated him 2 years ago in the first craniofacial mission between Operation Smile Australia, Philippines, and East Avenue Medical Center. And last year, in the second mission, we were able to see him come back. So he was able to talk with all the other patients, shown how he's been after the surgery, and it was transforming. It was life-changing. He had multiple friends. He went back to school. He would play basketball. Basketball is a big sport in the Philippines. So he was able to play those sports, go out. And he had this whole new kind of confidence that he didn't have before he had the surgery. So it was nice getting to see him talk to the patients and how it transformed his life. So they were actually very much eager to get the surgeries done as well.
Yes. And how does that make you both feel to be part of transformations like that?
These surgeries aren't really about us, the surgeons or volunteers, as much. It's more for the patients and how a simple surgery like that can transform his whole life on the surgery.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've seen that on multiple occasions. I always talk about the first patient zero, and she had a very similar story. And next time I caught up with her 2 years later, she was down at the bowling alley in Illigan with the boys hanging off her, and she was the bicycle captain. She wasn't even allowed to go to school before her surgery, and she'd already enrolled in university at the end of grade 12. So, I mean, that's like a huge change in these kids' lives, just because of one deformity, which is, 4.5 hours to fix.
That is incredibly impactful. And understanding the breadth of it across a range of countries, you must face a lot of challenges to be able to deliver that care and support that care. So what are some of the biggest challenges that organisations face?
There are multiple challenges. They start with, firstly, identifying a place to go, finding the right mix of volunteers to go there, looking at how we can support them administratively. That's getting visas, medical licenses, transport, accommodation, making sure that they're secure and safe when they're in those countries, getting the equipment there, making sure everything works well, then seeing the patients, getting the theatres set up properly, getting our counterparts involved, and then having a safe journey for the patient right through to their post-operative care and discharge. So, I mean, any step along that road, if it's not done properly, could mean the mission gets derailed. So every step is a logistic challenge and kind of something we obviously embrace.
Philippines.
Yeah, so I guess, as I said, this has been an evolution. So we might go with the current state of play. So what happens there is we identify our centre, and as I've said, that's East Avenue Medical Centre. We identify our counterparts. We identify the partner organisation, which in this case is Operation Smile Philippines. And then what we do is we work very closely with them to set up the mission. Now, there'd be a lead time. If it was our first visit there, we would do a fact find. In other words, we'd go and check the suitability of the infrastructure, the personnel, etc. Given that we've been there, this will be our third year. We're not going to do that this year. But there's still a lead time. We actually have to recruit volunteers, and they'll be largely Australian, New Zealand volunteers. We often bring surgeons and neurosurgeons from New Zealand because they're great team players, even if we are a bit adversaries on the sporting field. We're great together as a team. And then, of course, we have to get medical licenses. We have to get all of the administrative documents apostilled, which is no mean feat. We have to then organise transport. And from Stryker's point of view, once we identify the actual equipment we've got to work out how we're going to transport that. Once we're in country, get it all set up. And that often takes a good day to get everything set up. We do a lot of education when we're there. So a typical schedule would be we might do screening on the first day, and our counterparts like Geo here would have pre-screened maybe 30 patients. And then we'd sit down in a very noisy room with lots of kids and toys and balloons and all sorts of things. And we would go through and check their general health, their clinical situation, make sure we've got all the imaging we need, make sure that everybody's fit and well ready for surgery. We'd also go and select the patients that are most suitable to do on the mission. The next day we would do an educational day, and as Gio mentioned, Stryker ran a fantastic workshop for the doctors and nurses last year, and that's something we'd like to make a regular occurrence. The anaesthetists who don't like plates, screws and saws had a difficult airway workshop running concurrently on the same day, and that was also very popular and well received. And then the next day is the first day of surgery, and that's usually continued for 4 days. Usually 2 operating theatres, because obviously we've got our counterparts, because we don't take the full team. We often hybridise the operating room. So some of us and some of our hospital and Operation Smile Philippines counterparts, and then all the kids go to an ICU afterward. And then at the end of the mission, basically those kids are looked after by our counterparts in the Philippines, and we kept in close contact via WhatsApp because that seems to be the easiest way of doing this. And we give feedback. They tell us if there's any issues with recovery, and it's kind of a shared care model, even though we're doing it more remotely. So that would be the typical mission.
And Dr. Santos, from your perspective, how has Stryker contributed to Operation Smile's work in the Philippines?
Stryker has contributed a lot to especially the craniofacial missions done in East Avenue Medical Center, since we're able to use actually the best technology that is available for us to provide safe and efficient surgeries for the patients. Because if we weren't able to use these types of technology, I guess it isn't the most ideal way of doing the surgeries, which could actually contribute to more morbidities, more complications for these patients. So Stryker was a really big help in lending those equipment, the power tools, the fixation systems, to be able to perform these surgeries the best way that we can.
Yeah, thanks. So can you share an example of how Stryker's support has directly impacted on a mission or on a patient?
Yeah, so last October, we were able to do 8 complex craniofacial cases. And with Stryker's help, we were able to perform these surgeries well without setbacks. And we were able to perform them as the best way as we can. Stryker was able to actually bring 2 representatives from Australia, Brad and Emma. They were a big help, as they were able to teach us how to fix or how to use the equipment properly. So that was a big help in not only empowering the doctors, but also the nurses and the other medical staff in our institution. The most helpful thing that happened last year as compared to 2 years ago.
So having the on-site resources really did help out. It's not just the product, but it's also
Not just the product, but also the support.
Yeah, okay, great.
I think it's the long-term relationship. I think even prior to our involvement, Stryker was involved in providing equipment for Operation Smile, even cleft lip and palate equipment over the years. So I think it's been an enduring legacy from a company who's obviously got a very benevolent side to it. So I'd just like to say thank you, not just for the last couple of years, but for all of the work over the 40 years that Operation Smile's been working around the world.
Yeah, that is incredibly impactful. And so understanding that there will be people in the audience from Stryker who now would be really keen to be involved, what are some of the ways that Stryker employees can be helping out directly on the mission? What would they be doing on the mission? Well,
I think there's a lead up. There's a fair bit of, office time where obviously we've got to source equipment. That might be TPS consoles, it may be handpieces, it might be going through our consumables, plates, screws, things like that. There would be packing, that sort of stuff. So that's getting everything ready. Once we get over there, obviously, there'd be the education component, which I think is a raging success. So no free lunch, you'd have to come and teach. And then throughout the mission, as Gio and everyone said, there's often a bit of support for the kids. And, obviously there's a bit of downtime at the beginning of the day. And even in the screening, I was saying 30 kids in a big crazy room, the more distraction you can have, the better. So any volunteer who comes, whether they be from Stryker or anywhere else, will be asked to do their bit to keep the kids occupied, make them feel comfortable. And then during surgery, obviously, there's all the support for both the nursing and surgical staff, making sure that the equipment runs well and there's no issues. And then afterward, the teaching everywhere in the hospital the best way to look after the equipment as well. But one other thing I might suggest is production of something like a training module as well, which if somebody couldn't go or we were going into a new site, that could be available as a resource generally.
Aside from being on the missions, there are other events that Operation Smile Australia does that you'll be able to share with us?
Yeah, so I think Stryker's been involved in a few events over the years, certainly things that we have regularly. Last year there was the Bridge to Brisbane run, and Stryker had I think, a formidable team led by somebody like Chris, I think, was there. And I think that's very helpful on multiple levels, because it shows that great partnership between us. It helps to raise funds, and it gets more interest, not just with Stryker, but other groups as well. And then, of course, there are other fundraising events like our galas, which, again, everyone can attend. It's very helpful. And then, of course, there's fundraising within Stryker, the employees themselves, and the match program that Stryker has with them, which every dollar goes to helping a child somewhere. And obviously every contribution is more than well received. We're just grateful for every bit of help.
Oh, thank you for that. We certainly value the partnership significantly, and being a small part of the stories that you're able to create and the lives that you're able to transform is significantly impactful for us, let alone being there directly at the coalface. So I suppose thank you for allowing Stryker to come with you guys on a part of the journey. Great. Thank you. I thought it was, here we are, it's exciting to be at the R&D lab here in Brisbane, which was good. And as we were coming on our way through, and even your backdrop right now, wondering whether you could comment on that backdrop as well as the Stryker's slogan out there that rung true to you.
Yeah, so I think what I didn't realise was that Homer Stryker, I guess, started off making a plastic cutter. And that particular plastic cutter behind us, I suspect, is the one I used to use when I first graduated in medicine 43 years ago. And I think, as his motto said, if you've got a bit of equipment that doesn't work, make it work.
Yeah.
And I've always been a strong advocate of that. And if you still can't make it work, well, invent one that does work. Yeah. And I think that's how we all innovate, is to make sure that if something's not quite right, we modify it, and if it's still not right, we then innovate. And that's a really great motto.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you'd like to know more information, or you'd like to understand how you can help Operation Smile Australia, then please contact me directly, or you can reach out to other members of the Surgical Outreach Committee. And if you'd like to donate your time or your money, then please go onto the Impact platform. Thanks, and have a great day.